So intestinal obstruction, like you all know, it is a common cause. Good evening. It's a common cause for surgical emergencies as well as urgencies. Okay, so the mortality and morbidity have decreased over the past decades, but still they remain significant. So incidence about 1 to 3% of the hospitalizations and 25% of urgent or emergent general surgeries could be because of obstruction, which includes small bowel as well as large bowel obstruction. So in the pseudo-obstruction or Ogilvie syndrome, what you might have heard of and what I'll be discussing in one of the slides is never a cause for surgery. Fine, so it's only because of proper obstruction. Location, 80% involve the small bowel and about 33% of them show ischemia, which means small bowel obstruction. Whenever you have a patient, you should rule out the common causes, and the most important thing is to find if the bowel is perforated. So two dreaded complications of any obstruction, whether it's a closed loop obstruction or an open loop obstruction. One is ischemia of the bowel wall. Like we've already learned in our previous class, mesenteric ischemia. Similarly, when the mesentery or when the bowel, when the blood supply to this intestine has been hampered, what happens is threatening complication is ischemia. And next is perforation. These are the two complications, ischemia. The next is perforation and peritonitis. Mortality 8% if operated within 24 to 30 hours of symptoms. So that's what they say usually. There is a saying that the sun should not rise and set over a small bowel obstruction, which means within that time itself, you have to operate them if at all they require any surgical intervention. It triples with delayed intervention. So what are the types of obstruction? Either it can be a partial obstruction or it could be a complete obstruction, or it could be a high grade or low grade. So you have various classification, and depending on what is the etiology of the obstruction, it can either be an extraluminal cause, it could be an intramural, which means arising from the lumen, or it could be intraluminal, which is within the lumen. Okay. So for example, if you say there is a peritoneal carcinomatosis of the surrounding area, okay, so it could be an extraluminal cause, or if there is an hernia or if there's an adhesion, it could be outside the intestinal lumen. Whereas something which arises within the lumen, for example, if it's a growth or if it is a stricture, that would be an intraluminal cause. Right? Simple and strangulated. That is another classification. Simple means it doesn't have any vascular compromise. There is no ischemia, there is no perforation, there is no vascular compromise. In strangulated, the commonest cause of a strangulated would be a hernia, especially if it is a closed loop hernia. Okay, in that case, it acts like a closed loop. Similarly, a volvulus. So these are the two conditions which are at risk for strangulation, either a closed loop hernia or a volvulus. So whenever you have strangulation, what is the immediate next thing? It's always an ischemia, it's a gangrene and necrosis. In that case, the patient might have to sacrifice the bowel. So this is a Sleisinger's classification of causes of intestinal obstruction. Okay, so you have the intraluminal causes. Intraluminal causes Bezoars, or it could be feces. For example, fecolith. Okay, when it is a large amount of feces are present, that is usually a rare instance, but still, foreign bodies, yes. Gallstones. So gallstone is one common cause in our setting, right? So gallstones means what? You have something called gallstone ileus, which means what? The gallstone, which is present, it sometimes fistulizes through the duodenum. So you have a polycystoduodenal fistula. It slips down into the ileum. That's why it's called a gallstone ileus. So it's in the terminal ileum where there is an obstruction. So the typical triad of this is you'll have the presence of gallstone, you'll have the presence of pneumobilia, which means there is air along the passage. You have polycystoduodenal fistula. There is an air through the passage, and you have the ileus as well. So all of this is present. Then you can say it is Rigler's triad, which satisfies the criteria of gallstone ileus. Then you have polypoid neoplasms. So any malignancy which arises within also with polypoidal neoplasms. So intramural is something which arises from the wall. It could be an anastomotic stricture, could be a carcinoma which is rising from the wall, a congenital atresia or a stenosis. Diverticulitis. So diverticulitis, we learned last class, it is an outpouching in the wall. So a diverticulitis can present as an intestinal obstruction, we have learned. So you have diverticulitis, which can be uncomplicated and complicated, right? You might recall. So a complicated one is one where you have abscess, you have fistula, you have perforation. So, and you have obstruction as well. So when this obstruction is there, it becomes a complicated diverticulitis. Then IBD. Inflammatory bowel disease, very common because it can cause strictures. That strictures itself can cause obstruction. And intussusception. Intussusception, like you might have heard, it's more common in children. And what's the first thing which comes into your mind when we talk about intussusception? It is the red currant jelly stools because of the hemorrhagic necrosis. So intussusception means what? You have telescoping of the proximal intestinal segment into the distal one. So you have the intussusceptum, which telescopes into the intussusceptions. So this is called intussusception. You have different causes in children and in adults. What we have to find out in any patient with intussusception is there a lead point, which means there should be a cause for that intussusception. Sometimes in children, commonest it would be any viral gastroenteritis, where the child presents with severe abdominal pain and they'll have red currant jelly in the stools. So you do a simple ultrasound examination, they'll be able to find out the intussusception. Okay, that is one thing. And it could be because of mesenteric adenitis, which is the commonest cause of abdominal pain in children. Simple mesenteric adenitis, lymph nodes. Okay, that can cause. Whereas in adult, and it doesn't require any surgical intervention in children. Whereas in adults, you have small bowel intussusception, you have ileocolonic intussusception, or a colocolic. Ileocolic is you have the ileum, which goes into telescopes into the colon. In colocolic, you have the colon, which telescopes into the colon. So in these cases, you might have to resort to a surgical intervention. Okay, so we have to find out what is the cause. You might even have to reduce it and resect the intussusception. Otherwise, what will happen? It will keep on recurring. Okay, so in children, it's usually non-operative management. So sometimes what happens is you can just have pneumatic or hydrostatic reduction of the intussusception. That is in children. Okay, whereas in adults, you require a surgical management itself. So that is how the approach differs. And then ischemic injury. Ischemic injury is similar to what you have in IBD. You have strictures can form. Radiation, strictures can form. So when you have a stricture or any narrowing in a large bowel, so these are mainly pertaining to large bowel. Okay, so when you have any diverticulitis, ischemia, radiation, or IBD, any of this, it can be a cause for intestinal obstruction. And extrinsic, which means coming from outside. So the most common cause out here are adhesions, you have hernia, and post-peritoneal carcinomatosis. These are the three common causes for extrinsic bowel obstruction lesion, and these are the common causes for intestinal obstruction on the whole. So adhesions. Adhesions are more common following colorectal surgeries or gynecological surgeries or even appendectomy. So it's usually the lower quadrant surgery which mostly predisposes to adhesions rather than the upper quadrant. Upper quadrant, like you have a peptic ulcer or you have a polycystectomy, these rarely cause adhesions much. You have a simple, and if it's more a complicated procedure, there'll be more risk. It's more a contamination, prolonged procedure. Okay, if you have a lot of foreign things which have been introduced into the surgery, then you will have a large amount because there's a lot of fibrin deposition. Okay, and hence this will cause adhesions later on in life. It is not an immediate post-operative cause. Fine, then peritoneal carcinomatosis or even any carcinomatosis for that matter. It can either be from the bowel as such, from the abdomen as such, which means from the stomach, and what forms the stomach bed, the pancreas, and also from the colon. So these are the related structures close to the bowel, right? So colon, from the stomach or from the pancreas, any malignancy, that can cause an extrinsic impression on the colon, causing an obstruction. Or it could be a hernia as well. Distant metastasis like breast cell carcinoma, renal cell, or even skin tumors like melanomas. So those are the rare causes. Okay, we have not seen much causes because of metastasis resulting in this thing, but however, adhesions are very common in our setting and hernias as well. So these are common causes for obstruction. Another thing is congenital bands. What you have heard of something called Ladd's bands. So Ladd's bands, what they actually do is they present, they extend around the second or third part of the duodenum, and they help in fixing the cecum into the posterior, in the retroperitoneum. The cecum has been fixed posteriorly. But what happens when these Ladd's bands, when there is a malrotation, what happens is it courses in between, causing an obstruction, these Ladd's bands, and they prevent they prevent the proper orientation of the cecum. That can result in obstruction. So that's about Lanzmann's, and these are more congenital, which means it is a pediatric cause. Fine. So among the pediatric cause, one is you have the congenital bands, that's the Lanzmann's commonest. Then you have herniation, sometimes incarcerated hernia in children, or even paraduodenal hernia, or through the foramen of Winslow. So those are the congenital causes. Congenital causes are Lanzmann's. Apart from Lanzmann's, you have paraduodenal hernias, as well as hernia which arises which extrudes through the foramen of Winslow, and incarcerated hernias as well. Okay, so volvulus. Volvulus is another extrinsic bowel cause. So why does the volvulus, what is volvulus? Volvulus is just twisting of the colon around the mesentery. So what happens when there is a mesentery, when the mesencolon, for example, the mesentery around the colon, the mesocolon is very long. You have, again, it's very redundant. It's freely mobile. So what happens? It's not fixed in one particular position, and the bowel can twist around it. This is what results in volvulus. So you have two common types of volvulus, and volvulus, what we learned, it's a closed loop. So two examples of closed loop. One is a volvulus and one is a hernia. So what is the problem with closed loop? It's always a risk for ischemia. So whenever you think of volvulus, the first thing which should come to your mind is they're always at risk for strangulation and ischemia.